Yo, actually professional. No green screen, but t-shirt. Amazing, huh? Look at that. Listen, I've got a very special guest coming on today. I was originally going to react to a Lotus Eaters video about Restore Britain. I thought since Mark is the man to talk to about this, he spent his life, his adult life, um, dedicated to this area. So why waste that listening to Sargon and Co? There is a few questions I want to ask him about Sargon. Interestingly, Sargon, Carl Benjamin. You can use that QR code to feed me. There's a link at the bottom of the YouTube chat or super chats. I am now full-time writer. It's another way of saying I'm running out of money rapidly. So my YouTube is also part of my income. Uh, uh, so, that's the grift done. What have I just pressed that I didn't mean to? Sorry you didn't get the original intro. They've just got rid of that. Pay them about 400 quid a year and it doesn't work. Anyway, enough of my chat. There's enough people here to start with. I think me and Mark can just have a bit of banter before those numbers will go up. Watch the magic occur. Yo!
Hello, how are you doing?
Mark called me a gay boy earlier, everyone.
I did. I think, was it gay boy or gay lord? It was one of the two.
Yeah, gay lord would have been
a very
better.
amusing way to start a phone conversation, I thought.
Who did I see talking about exactly that slur the other day? There's this fella, you might know him. I don't know how much time you spend now, rabbit holing YouTube, but that sounds a bit awful, doesn't it? Rabbit. When you make it like an active verb like that, what you been doing? I've been out rabbit holing. There's a geezer called Andrew Wilson who sort of made his name on the Whatever podcast. And he's got this very sort of tight, logical way of arguing. He can be a bit unpleasant at times, but he was talking the other day that there was an incident, one of these axing of children. I mean, you just say it like that because it's like an everyday occurrence. And she said something on X, like, I just wish that she said something. Oh no, tell her, I've got it wrong. She was attacked by a group of blokes. And she said in a private message, so not on X, in WhatsApp to a friend, she used the F word slur for homosexual people in a private chat. Her and her friend fell out. Her friend grassed her up, went to the police and said she used this slur. So they were all arguing about it, and they had two people who backed for the other team, so to speak, on the panel, and they were defending it. They were saying, no, you should not be able to say it because you don't know the pain it causes us. And Andrew Wilson said it's people like you that give it so much power. Kids at school in the 60s, 70s, 80s, today will call each other gay boy. Not because they think you're gay, not even because they probably don't even understand homosexuality or what it is, what it means. They know they're not allowed to say it because people like you keep saying, don't say it, don't say it. And that's what kids do. That's what taboo is about, isn't it? So, yeah, it was a good opener. I appreciate it. From someone who's very serious. I mean, look at your face now. You're terrifying me. Yeah, it was a good opener. Well done. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm all right. As for that Andrew Wilson guy from the Whatever podcast, he is good at debating, but I kind of view him as a little bit like a boxing champ that's never fought anyone worthwhile. So he's been very much carried. He's obviously a reasonably high IQ guy, and he knows his talking points, and he only gets put up against sort of OnlyFans e-girls and rabid feminists who've probably got at best sort of an IQ of about 110, and he runs rings around them. I would be interested to see him debating someone who could actually hold their own and knew what they were talking about and had a reasonable argument. And obviously, because he is sort of locked into that world, he makes a lot of money sort of making fun of the people that he debates with. And I'm not a big fan of things like that, whatever podcast, because they kind of pick these bad archetypes of women. And the men who watch those shows come away with the mindset they're like, well, all women are like that. You know, the answer to feminism is to ignore women, when in fact, the answer to sort of feminism isn't to sort of watch the whatever podcast and laugh at these like horrible examples of women, but to find good women, come back together with them, form partnerships and have lots of white babies. That's sort of my solution. Is a lot more radical, but probably a lot less entertaining.
Yeah, certainly. I saw him. I mean, I'm not a fan of Matt Dillahunty at all. I used to be.
I don't know who that is. So.
Oh, you will do. You will do. It was you will know him. The New Atheists. I used to have one of those sort of like cable TV shows, and people would call in. If you saw a picture of him, you'd know him. And he's a clever bloke, although I disagree with most of what he says. That would be interesting. But he walked out very early because he's married to a trans, and Andrew made a joke, which was a bit of a shame. Yeah.
He's married to a tranny.
Yeah, this atheist bloke. Yeah, he's like the boss.
I mean, look. So look, let's be honest, right? If you're a bloke and you're married to a tranny, you're married to a fella, aren't you? So that does make you gay, but it also makes you delusional. And if you go around expecting everyone else not to laugh at you, you're even more deluded. So I wouldn't take that guy seriously from the get-go. I think that's just absolutely hideous. And if that's where atheism has led him, to share his bed with a man that has chopped off his penis and is LARPing as a woman, that's an advert not to be an atheist, isn't it? That's like, quick, let's get back to church, guys. I don't want to end up like this fella.
Yeah, it is an odd turnout. I remember years ago, when all the sort of feminist bedroom YouTubers appeared, who've all disappeared, actually. I wonder what happened to them. Some really strange people. They were turning male, then back to female, and God, they were like 15. It's like, sure, why? You had a couple of hits with the Russell Brand thing, which is that I see it every week. It's on the internet. They always want to show it to me. It's like, oh yeah, have you seen? It's like, oh God. If there's footage of me at art school on VHS cassettes that if it got on the internet, I would be horrified. Not because I was an arsehole, but because I was 17, 18, and that's not the sort of age you want to be being recorded and published. But, I see Ed Dutton, Professor Teddy Dutton, he done a video about that, you and Russell. And
yeah. I saw he got quite a few views.
Yeah. He interviewed me about my novel. People, if you don't know, I won't drag this out. It's doing really well. It's now in shops. It's not on Amazon only, which is great because it's now in a bigger ecosphere. But it's not so great, as Mark will know, being also a published author. When Waterstone, like Barnes and Noble in America, have got this in stock, right? Amazing. But my cut takes another cut because there's another person in the chain. It's like the more prestigious the seller.
You don't want to put it into Waterstones. That's a major error. So when you go onto Amazon and you publish a book and it says, would you like it to be available in Barnes and Noble and Waterstones and all these places? The ego in you is like, of course, it must be on these shelves. And then as you're about to click yes, and you read the small print, it's like the tiny amount that you get is now going to be sort of divided by 10. And you're going to be getting a mere tenth of what you did before. You're like, yeah, it's not worth it.
I am aware of all that. These weren't decisions I made off the cuff. It's not the first novel I've published. Oh, that sounded a little bit like, it's not my first rodeo, Collett. But my first novel was done all right. Then it was stocked in Waterstones nationally. And that changed everything. That started getting me reviews in, what at the time were considered, decent publications like ID. Do you remember ID? They'd have that weird one eye shut that people say Satanist on the cover.
So you did a deal with the Satanists and you did the whole one eye thing, and they sold your book.
I saw it coming. The thing is, I'm looking at. Have you read Write, Publish, Repeat? It's a classic document. It's been proven. You get 3 or 4 books out a year, not necessarily novels. I've got one I've been writing for 10 years that I'm editing at the moment. That should be ready autumnish. Maybe a book of my best of my Substack or something. So that's 3, and then maybe another one, and then next year you do the same. Next year you do the same. Next year, and then you build a brand over 3 or 4 years, and then you've only got to sell a handful of each novel every month. And if you've got what they call 1,000 true fans, you can live on it. And I never wanted to sell lockpicks online. I did. I had the biggest lockpicking shop online in the world. I made a very successful business. I haven't had to worry about money for 20 years. I bought lovely suits. I went on holiday all the time. I didn't invest any of it, and now I'm absolutely skint. So I'm really trying to make this work. And being in that ecosphere,
probably should have kept the lockpicking business. From what I've heard so far, there was one solution. If you have a lockpicking business and you're successful, don't become a writer. This is what this man's telling you. But he's also saying, buy my book, because now I'm unsuccessful. I need you to fund me.
However, I wasn't happy. Mark. It was killing me. I just waking up to a couple of 100 emails. That's before you start your day's work. Answering them. Half of them are going to come back with another answer. And then marketing, then writing sales copy, then writing content marketing, then writing product copy. Just that work. I love that business. It's changing anyway, because AliExpress, Temu, Amazon, it's like the supermarkets come to town, all the indies are going. But regardless of that, I think my business partner will probably keep it going at a different level. But I just woke up unhappy, and I thought, right, identify.
Chris, you're asking me to play the world's smallest violin because you had to work to earn lots of money. Is that what you're doing here? Because I'm not going to be playing it for you.
No, I just thought, look, you've got a decision to make. Do you take yet another risk, which I've done all my life? And I wanted to be a comedian. I became a comedian. There's a lot of risks I've taken. Do you want to be doing this job in 10 years' time at the sacrifice of being a writer? Because I couldn't do the business and the writing at an acceptable level of either of them. I know that because I tried it writing this, and I just thought, no, fuck it. If you published the first thing I ever sent off got published. And I've always wanted to be a writer. I'd rather be scratching a living at 60, knowing I give my dream a go, than being comfortable in the machine. And I mean that. I just couldn't do it anymore. I understand the logics of what you're saying. You've got a decent income, but what's a decent income if you're just sitting around unhappy? It's so lovely, Mark, to wake up, sit at a computer. Yeah, I've got to do a bit of promo and that, but that's all right because I'm promoting my books. And then just write. I do 5 hours non-negotiable writing every day. And I'll do more than that, but that's non-negotiable. That has to be done. And I'm actually loving it. Will it pay off in the long run? I don't know. But existentially, it had to be done. I just can't. I don't want to get to 64 and think, well, maybe do it this year. No, it's time to do it now. And what history? 53. And what history has shown me in the past is when the pressure's on, when I have to make something work, I tend to. And there's many examples of that. Also, my Substack's really popular, and that's going to go paid. Now, that doesn't mean anyone who's subscribed to my Substack, that doesn't mean you're going to miss out. You're actually going to get more, because I'm going to drop out more free stuff, and then behind a paywall, there's going to be more and longer and more personal stuff as well. But I'm not here to promote my Substack. Substack's quite a good one. I've got about 1,600 subscribers. I only need a couple of hundred of them to, subscribe, and I can eat and keep a roof over my head. Anyway,
basically, this is now a business meeting. Dangerfield is laying out to me exactly what he needs to make per month, and I'm going to advise him now, like his father. I'll be like, look, Dangerfield, number one, stick to the writing. I don't know. You see, from my perspective, like I've had a number one best-selling book on Amazon, and I'll tell you this, I actually find writing quite difficult, and I find it quite difficult for a couple of reasons. Firstly, if I'm not super passionate about the topic that I'm writing on, I find it difficult. And what's more, I found it with my book that I needed to leave it like 3 to 6 months after the first draft to come back with fresh eyes, read it again, and to fundamentally go over it with, a really critical approach. Because when you write something and you read it back, you're like, yeah, this is the best thing ever. This is absolutely wonderful. But you leave it sort of 3-6 months, you cool off, you read it again, but you're reading it then as if you didn't write it. You sort of forgotten what you wrote. And I went back to my book and I was like, look, this isn't actually, this has got the sort of beginnings of something that could be quite good, but it needs a lot of polish. And it was that second draft that transformed it from what was more like a series of loosely connected essays into what was a proper book with a running narrative throughout. So I actually find that quite hard. And I don't think I could do what you're doing, writing for 5 hours a day, because unless I was sort of writing, I don't know if I could be passionate about topics to be able to write like a machine, whereas if you said to me, right, there's boxes here, and you get paid £1 per box for the number you can package, and you've got to do a minimum of 5 hours, I'd be like, well, watch me package boxes. And I'd just bang the music on or a podcast, and I'd be like, right, I'm doing that. But with something creative, I can't say that I could do 5 hours of creative business a day and not burn out. You know what I mean? Also, just as a side point, everyone in the chat is asking what blue goo that I'm drinking. It's actually called Lucozade Blue Rush. It's an energy drink. It tastes of those it's like a raspberry energy drink. It's really nice. It's not actually the blood of a dead Smurfs, as some people have suggested. It's just a regular drink that you can purchase. I actually buy them in bulk because they're very cheap then. And Red Bull is now so expensive that I've been priced, being a peasant, I've been priced out of the Red Bull market. I can no longer afford it. So hard times, guys, hard times. No more Red Bull for Mark because it's too expensive. This is to prove it. This is what I have. I only have a Red Bull on like special occasions now. Do you know how much a big Red Bull is here? It's £2.80 now. And that's in a regular shop. If you get it like a services, it can be £4 something.
Why not like a cup of tea? Cup of Grandma Towler's tea, maybe. So a traditional.
Well, unless Grandma Towler starts like smashing up caffeine tablets and lacing the bags of tea with that, I'm not making it through, mate. You wanted a high energy show tonight at 6 p.m. This is what's providing it, mate. A £1.
I don't remember saying that because I certainly can't offer that in return. It's gone midnight here. Mark, right, lovely to have you. A privilege to have you as well. Like I say, I was going to respond. I was going to get us to react to the saga on the stream. There's something I want to ask you about that, but having you here makes more sense. Something. It's related, and we will get into Restore Britain, and this is adjacent to Restore Britain. I watched a Lotus Eaters stream. They had Connor back on. I don't know if you know, but Connor's gone off on his own, doing
Connor
really
Tomlinson.
well. Yeah, doing
the guy who looks
well.
like a dysgenic freak with like flappy ears that are of different sizes. Yeah, he's an absolute. He's a knobhead. He's a knobhead. He's an obnoxious knobhead.
Well, that was actually, I was actually going to say, he come back to the Lotus Eaters, and it's like the first thing I thought was, he's pulling rank here a bit. When he was on it as one of them, he was sort of like one of the little ones, but now he come back on like, I've got my own thing. I spoke to this bloke. I was on this podcast, and there was the dynamic shift was incredible and noticeable. But he said that, I can't remember where he got the information from. I think I think MI5 or MI6, whatever it used to be called. I don't think they call them that anymore, do they? I mean, maybe in conversation, but it's just the secret services or something. But they've admitted that they planted people into what was the National Front, which I'm guessing would be late 70s. Connor said that that's out now, and I was just wondering.
Is that his hot take? I mean, what a stupid prick! They do this with every group.
Right.
So anyone that keeps up any radical group, organization, or movement will have people embedded in it from the secret services. And if that's his hot take, somebody needs to drag him outside and give him a slap round the back of those stupid flappy Dumbo ears.
This isn't about Connor Tomlinson, but I am ignorant of these things. So
of course they do. I mean, the biggest case of this recently was in the animal rights movement, and they had several agents embedded in the animal rights movement, and one of them was apparently a bit of a good-looking Chad lad, and he was in there, and obviously when you work undercover, you get a sizable wage, but apparently you also get to keep anything you make while you work undercover as a bit of a bonus. So there's lots of perks for being undercover. There's also lots of things that are bad about being undercover, in the fact you can't go and see your family, you can't go and do normal things. You have to live a role for however long. But this guy was a bit of a good-looking Chad. He had plenty of money because he was working undercover, and he leveraged his Chad-like nature to go around and fertilize many of the women in the animal rights movement. And it came out as this big disgrace because this guy was working for the secret services and he was leveraging his position, his money, and using his sort of abilities. And these guys are pretty talented people. They're probably physically fit. They had to pass several tests. They've got high IQ. They go into these groups. Naturally, people sort of take a liking to them because they've been picked as people that people will take a liking to. And he was just screwing everyone. I believe he got at least one of them pregnant, and it was a big scandal. But this happens to every group. This happens to people on the far right, people on the far left, the animal rights movement. If you have the if tomorrow Britain was sucked into the war in Iran, and there was a powerful anti-war movement that was turning up and genuinely causing issues for the state, it wouldn't be long before the Secret Service embedded numerous people within that movement. And when people are embedded in a movement, they tend to carry out one of three tasks. They either do things that embarrass the movement, and they're like agent provocateurs. So they embarrass the movement, they get people arrested, they cause trouble. The second thing they do is they cause splits. So they go into the movement, they turn people against each other with the intention of breaking it up. Or the third, which is the sort of hardest to spot, is they come into the movement and do a pretty good job and just sit there and report back exactly what's going on. Because if you're somebody who goes into the movement to disrupt, you are likely to get ejected. But if you're somebody, if the state really wants to know what you're up to, because they think that you're going to be carrying out serious illegal acts like the animal rights movements were, attacking different medical facilities around the country that test on animals, and potentially assassinating certain scientists or medical practitioners, they keep you in there for as long as possible. They'll be like, look, go in, do a good job, help out. You know, this is something that happens to all movements. And because it happens to all movements, and because anybody who knows anything already knows this, so I don't know why Connor's making out this is like a hot take. It's just
that's not fair of me. I don't think he was. It was just part of a thing he was.
Yeah, of course I'm going to be involved in the National Front, but it hurts movements for two reasons. Because one, these people are put into hurt movements, but two, it creates an aura of paranoia within these movements, and it's why people who are on the dissident right are constantly accusing other people of being state agents. So if somebody comes along and they behave like an idiot or get drunk at an event and just go, oh, he's a Fed, look, he made us all look stupid. I mean, at the moment, there's a group that I'm not going to mention that are going round to protests in the UK. They are doing like Nazi salutes, wearing white face masks, etc. And a lot of people said, these guys, they must be Feds. they must be feds because they're here and they're causing trouble. And, that's exactly what the feds would do because it makes us all look bad. Now, I'm not saying they are feds, but what I'm saying is the paranoia within the movement usually causes anyone to be called a fed. But then I'm sure feds accuse other people who aren't feds of being feds because they're genuinely doing a good job. But I think if people are feds, you can sort of say several things about them. Firstly, they will be people who have access to more wealth than others. High-level feds, of course. Like, I'm not talking about sort of people who get paid 20, 30 quid a week to give names to hope not hate. I'm talking about actual feds and infiltrators. Infiltrators will always have money. They will be people that you probably don't know their family, their friends, their wife, their background. So they might be like, oh, yeah, well, I came to this country when I was 6 years old and I came from sort of New Zealand and most of my family are back over. That's a great one because you're not going to go to New Zealand to find out, are you? And those people won't be subject to the same restrictions as others. So somebody like me, I'm banned from traveling to 29 countries. I'm not allowed a bank account. I'm not allowed on X. So it's, people might say, look, monks are fed. Well, if I was a fed, I'd be on X with 200,000 followers. I'd be traveling all over and the state would want all eyes on me so I could lead people down the wrong path. I'm definitely not a fed because the state has their foot on my neck more than anyone else in the dissident right in Britain. But if you were to look for state agents, they are probably people who pop on the scene and all of a sudden, very articulate, getting on all the shows, massive X account overnight, YouTube up to like 1.5 million in 4 weeks. And it's almost like they're there and they've just been astroturfed. So everyone's like, wow, this is the new Messiah. Then it's Pied Piper time and he leads everyone off the edge of a cliff. That's generally something that you can look for. And I would say that's sort of Tommy Robinson, because at one point, Tommy Robinson, to be fair to Tommy Robinson, Tommy was actually pretty much platformed at one time. No YouTube, no X, no Facebook, banned from traveling to the United States, deported from Mexico because they thought he entered Mexico to travel to the United States. So there was a few people, Tommy included, that were really heavily banned. But then all of a sudden, free trip to Israel, back on X, a promoted account, gets his YouTube back, visits the State Department in America despite illegally entering America at one point, which gets you a permanent ban. If you use a fake passport to enter America, which he did at one point, you'd be banned for life, you or I. But he's now back in America, he's doing this. And really what you've got to say is, if you see somebody who is suspiciously being promoted to the point where overnight they just blow up and almost, GB News can't stop having them on, you're like, well, this is a bit odd. And I would say somebody like Tommy, maybe at the beginning was a normal guy that had normal concerns. But now, if you look at Tommy's latest tweets, they're straight out of the state's playbook. I mean, I actually quoted one of them today. Listen to this. He says, and this is a direct quote, "It looks as though the far left, the Islamists, and the real far right, who are working together, are crapping themselves about May the 16th. Now, this is hilarious. His narrative is essentially, we need to unite all races, all ethnic groups, all religious groups, in order to build this multiracial, multicultural coalition to back the Zionists, to back Israel. And anyone that says anything nasty about Israel, they're part of either the far left, the Islamists, or the far right, and we've got to get rid of them." Well, that might as well be it could be a Daily Mail writer, couldn't he? He could be writing for the Daily Mail at this point. He could be stood next to Kemi Badenoch, with the Conservative Friends of Israel badge on his suit. That is, he is that, but for, the disenfranchised white working man. So he's doing, whereas Kemi and her friends are doing that for sort of like your Zio boomers who read the Daily Mail. Tommy's doing it for the man down the boozer. Yeah, the Zio boomers, the sort of like, the boomer types that are like, I'll die for Israel tomorrow, mate. I mean, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this, my grandkids mean the world to me, son. I'd do anything for them. But if I had to sacrifice them for Israel, they'd be gone tomorrow. You know, the type. That's
Zio boomer is amazing.
The Zio boomers are like, Kemi Badenoch may be black, but she's as British as steak and ale pie. Oh, get lost. And like Tommy Robinson is that, but for the working man. You know, he's like the guy who gets out of his white van on a night, you know, who lives in an area adjoining to a heavily Muslim area. He's like, yeah, I follow Tommy. I'm looking forward to May the 16th. And he's like, but what should I think about blowing up schools in Iran? And Tommy's there. It's great. The more schools we blow up, the better it is. And he's like, not sure about that, but I love Tommy, so you know I'll defer to his position. So let's blow up some more schools. You know, this is how they control the narrative. And most people who are of this sort of state-controlled nature that sort of blow up like this, they blow up for Israel. And they will get a trip over to speak in the Knesset. They will go over to Israel and sit with influencers and, you know, prostrate themselves, you know, on Israeli TV. Like, oh, the British were terrible because we said you should maybe share things a bit with the Palestinians. We should have just said slaughter them. Come on, you know. That's what Tommy does.
Did you have a hands-on experience of these sort of Secret Service people or plants, whatever you want to call them, when you were in the BNP?
I only had, I've had experience with two people who came out of being plants, and neither of them were Secret Service. One was Hope Not Hate Searchlight magazine, and one was a guy who called himself the Secret Agent, and his name, he went under the name Jason Gwynn. Now, Jason Gwynn worked for the BBC. How he embedded himself in the BNP was actually genius. So we had an
sorry, Mark. What date are we talking? Because not everyone
this was 2003-4. This was 2003-4. So we had an organizer called Andy Sykes, who was the Bradford organizer. Everyone knew him. They'd met his wife. We knew his brother. His brother had been in the National Front for years. Everyone liked Andy. Andy was a workhorse for the BNP. What we didn't know is Andy had been involved, allegedly, in some criminal activity, and he'd been turned. That's an allegation that was made, and that's why we were told that he had turned. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm going to put a big allegedly there, so I don't want to be sued, but we were told he had been in trouble with the police about a riot that happened on an estate called Ravenscliffe Estate. Now, one day, Andy turned up, and he was like, hey, we're doing this activity and meet the new lad, Jason. I was like, oh, cool. And he was like, yeah, Jason got in touch. He wants to be involved. He wants to come out leafleting. Great. And then everywhere Andy went, Jason came. And I remember one day, I pulled Andy to one side because I didn't like Jason. And he said to me, I said to him, look, where's this Jason from? How do you know him? And he says, oh, yeah, he's a sound guy. I've been to his house, actually. I've picked him up there. He works in a local pub down by us. And I was like, okay. And he's like, so you know him pretty well? Yeah. He works in this boozer. So one day, Jason came to my house to pick up some leaflets. And he was asking really, really odd questions. And one of my friends was there. And my friend was an avid shooter. So he'd got like a gun license. He used to go target shooting. He'd got a shotgun license, but he also was a real nature lover. And he was talking about a number of things. And he was talking about going and watching badgers at night. So he'd got these infrared cameras and like night vision stuff. So he could go and watch these badgers at night with their, babies. And he was like, oh, there's those massive badger set near me. And I go and watch them. I sit there, I set up, and it's lovely. You can watch them. And I'm trying to get the gear to like photograph them because it's like really magical. And then somebody changed the subject and said like, what else do you do? He goes, oh, well, we go shooting. You know, me and Mark have gone clay pigeon shooting. And, so then Jason's up like, what guns have you got? And he was like, oh, well, I've got a rifle and I go target shooting. I've got this and I've got these licenses because I live near the farm. And he goes, what about the badgers? I bet you love to shoot the badgers. He's like, I've never shot a badger in my life, mate. Why would I want to shoot the badgers? I said I photograph the badgers because I'm a big fan of nature, but I go target shooting because I've done military service in the past and and I got really interested in, like, you know, shooting, and I've done some competitive. So he explains himself. And Jason then says, but I bet you'd like to shoot the badgers, wouldn't you? I bet you'd really love when they're sticking their head out of those little like holes and stuff. I bet you'd love to just blow one off. My mate was like, I just said I don't shoot the badgers. I photograph the badgers, right? I like the badgers. And at the end, he pulled me to one side and he goes, this guy's not right. He said, this guy's not right. He says, he keeps asking me about shooting these badgers. And I says, I've never heard somebody so insistent in my life about killing a badger. And he's like, it's like he wants to get something out of me. So later on, Jason came over to the house again to pick up some leaflets. And he was like, oh, where do you want to be in a few years? He says, I bet you'd love to sort of like be, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was going down the road. Wouldn't you love to be like the Übergruppenführer in charge of your own concentration camp? And I was like, not really, mate. And I was like, I'm not answering these questions. So I rang up Andy again and I was like, this Jason guy doesn't seem right to me. No, he sound as a pound. And eventually Jason stopped coming to things. And I rang him and says, have you seen this Jason? Because obviously everyone trusted Andy because we knew him before he'd been turned. I said, have you met this Jason recently? Have you seen him? And he's like, no. Look, he's got a new bird, and they just spent, you know it's like when you get. And I was like, yeah. And a few weeks later, it was like the BBC contacted us and said, you've had this secret agent. It's Jason Gwynn. And one of our guys went in to view the footage, and he was like, look, Andy Sykes was the cover. So you do have a situation where sometimes a guy that is one of your guys will be bought and then used to be cover for the agent. Now, the other agent was even more weird. I used to go down to London to help leaflet, and there was a really nice guy in London called Duncan. And Duncan was just always doing activism. He was always doing nice stuff for the party. You know, he's always like, oh, well, Duncan's here, and Duncan's sort of like a reasonable guy, and he's someone that really chatty, really friendly. If there was leafleting to be done, Duncan would be there. And I remember I went down to leaflet for the GLA election. And we went to this little cafe in one of the white areas of London. And we all had like all day breakfast. Because it's once you've been out there from about 10 a.m. and you've been leafleting till about sort of 1, you get pretty hungry. It's 3 hours of walking around, stuffing leaflets through the door, occasionally speaking to people. And I ended up sitting next to this Duncan guy. And he was just really friendly. He didn't ask any dodgy questions. He didn't do anything to set your sort of like antenna going. And then, he was just one of these guys that was always there, always very friendly, and he died. And I was like, oh no. And people were like, hey, have you heard Duncan's passed away? And I was like, that's really awful. You know, what are we doing for his funeral? And somebody said, well, we're not doing anything, mate, because Searchlight have just published this big notice saying, please do not come to Duncan's funeral. He was one of our long-term moles that just happened to die of like a heart attack or something while he was basically still embedded and on the job. And we were all like, well, so you have people like Andy, who was once an actual nationalist who'd been turned. He gave cover to an undercover journalist who stuck out like a sore thumb, but Andy kept vouching for him. So everyone was like, well, if Andy knows him, he must be all right, kind of thing. And then finally, you had Duncan. And Duncan was the most mild-mannered, easy-to-talk-to guy you've ever met. And then he died, and it was like, don't come to the funeral. He works for Hope Not Hate. Now, as for people who work for the state, I don't think you'd ever find out who they are, because that when they're extracted, they probably just disappear altogether. But I would always be nervous about anyone who has no backstory, no family, lives in a place where they could disappear. So if you walk into a guy's house and he's like, yeah, my family moved over here from New Zealand when we were 6. Both my parents are dead. My house suspiciously looks like a show home. You know,
that's exactly what
there's nothing here. You know, no girlfriend, no wife, no
logos
kids
on the carpet.
Yeah, exactly. It's like house like a show home. You know, everything's just been purchased with from IKEA. Only one set of knives and forks have had the price stickers taken off because he's never used any other ones. He only uses one pair. And like, he's like, yeah, you're probably, you know, embedded deep. But listen to your instincts. Like with that Jason, my friend who'd been in the army, he was like, that guy's not right. He just keeps asking about killing these badgers. And he was like, watch him. And I never said. So I was originally charged for speeches, political, and I was found not guilty on all 8 counts. So I was charged for things that I said at meetings as part of political speeches, which were deemed legal by a court. However, I never said anything weird or wacky in front of him because I just didn't like him. And my mate, when he put his hand on my shoulder, was like, this guy is a wrong 'un. I was like, yeah, well, I'm deferring judgment to you, mate. And he is a weird guy. And as I said, I'd warned several people, like, my mate doesn't like him. He said weird stuff in front of me. He's always probing for somebody to say something dodgy, but without saying something dodgy himself. So he doesn't come out with like the racial slurs and stuff himself. He could be held up to scrutiny. But he's constantly sort of prompting you to. It's really difficult. But look what people are asking you to do as well. You know, if you've got a guy who's stood behind you saying, come on, lads, who's going to punch those 3 reds over there? But he ain't going to punch them himself. You're like, maybe it's you.
I'm just thinking it's a bit off-piste, but what a state to get in, to have been turned under pressure. They're still your friends, but the state have got more on you. They're going to wreck your life, and you've got this, Fed that you're covering for. He's trying to cause trouble for people you've lived and worked with for years. Oh, that must be, how can you live like that? Awful,
well, mate,
shocking.
It's very similar to the mafia. So once they've got
I was thinking Donnie Brasco. That was exactly what I was thinking when you were talking.
Somebody in the chat's put like Big Puss in The Sopranos, and that's it. Once they've got you on something and they're saying, look, mate, we've gone through your phone, we've gone through the stuff in your house, something like this, it might be 2 years, but we could make it 6. The upper limit's 7 years on something. So how do you fancy 6 years in the slammer? Your wife's going to leave you. You're not going to have a job when you come out. What's going to happen to your house? Your kids aren't going to know you. Your missus is probably going to be shacked up with another fella, and your kids will be calling him dad. What are you going to do? Are you going to do this? And you probably think, how's my way out? But there is a way out, and it's be honourable. I mean, look at people like Sam Media.
Yeah.
They get stitched up. They do the time, they come out, head held high. He's now got a #1 best-selling book on Amazon. His book went #1 today. Everyone buy his book as well as Dangerfield's. Obviously, his is, called, Sam Mealy's got this new book about his time in prison. And I did the same. When me and Nick Griffin got put on trial, Nick was charged with 4 counts of inciting racial hatred. I was charged with 8, meaning I'm twice as good as him, obviously. And both of us beat all the charges in court. But that's the way you've got to do it. You can't go guilty. You can't throw your hand in. You've got to fight it. And you've got to be prepared to do the time if you go down. And I was prepared to do the time, and I fought it all the way. I've never gone guilty to anything. And that's the other thing. People say this about, when's Mark going to get arrested? Mark's been arrested enough times. I was part of the biggest post-war political trial in British history. There was 2 of us there, and it took from, I think it was 2004 to 2007 to conclude. It took a lot out of my life. I lost a lot going through that. People I thought were my friends, people I thought that were with me, some of them betrayed me and were like, I don't want anything to do with you now. People disavowed me. Then these people want to be friends with you. When it's not guilty, your phone's like, oh, you want to be my mate again now? Congratulations. That's how it is. That's what it was like. It was difficult.
And the thing is, when you're going through things like that, what you really need is support. And that's usually the first thing that goes. Do
you want to know something dark? Do you want to know something dark?
Yeah, I do. But before I'll have that in a minute. But just, I think I can say this. You met Sam the other week. We went out for dinner with Sam, didn't you? How is he? How is he in himself?
He's really good. Sam's a good bloke. Look, I speak to Sam all the time, almost every day. He's a very, very close friend of mine, and getting Sam back's a big thing for us. It's a big thing. It's a big thing for him. It's a big thing for the movement. Obviously, it's a big thing for me personally as well. It's not about me, but like having a friend back, like me and him traveling down to a demo like we did on Saturday together, like the old times. It's really good. You know, I love the guy. He is a true soldier. He's the kind of guy that you need. You know, he not only went not guilty and fought it in court, but unfortunately he lost. And when he lost, he took the time. He did it. He never caved in. He never got any concessions. And he came out the other side. And the minute he was out the other side, he was straight back at demos. That guy's a hero.
Yeah, fair play to him. So yeah, people do look for Sam's book. What's it called, Mark?
It is called. I want to get the title right. So this is. I have got it here, and I just want to make sure it's right. It's called Legal, Truthful, Guilty, and that's because his stickers were admitted to be both legal and truthful, but despite that, they still sent him to jail.
Yeah, that's the. I'm just going to get the page up. I do promote my novel, but I think Sam's is worth a look for sure. What's going on here? Hang on. Bosh. Can you see that yet? No.
Nope.
Nope. Mine was also a #1 book on Amazon. Just drop that in there. Can you see that?
Three good people, all authors, all #1 bestsellers.
Is The Fall of Western Man still available?
Yeah.
Yeah, people, that's worth a read as well from Mark. The Fall.
Also, I'm not a total Jew like Dangerfield, so mine's available for free on download.
Also, Mark's not a professional writer who earns his living from it. Here's Sam's book. I will be getting that. Oh, it looks like Sam's a total Jew. He's charging money for it. Anyway, have a look.
I was only joking, mate, but mine is free from my website, www.fallofwesternman.com. You can download the free PDF copy. So,
right now,
it's been downloaded about 40,000 times now. So, if I had if I'd got £1 for every one of those copies,
if I had £1 for every one of my books that had been
downloaded for free, I wouldn't be a millionaire, but I'd be slightly happier.
Well, yeah, I don't know a lot about Sam, but I've followed the whole story, and he seems like a warrior and fair play. Lovely to be back with his family. It must be lovely for Laura and the kids as well. Right, darkness. I'll take it. Go.
Well, look, the darkness is whenever you're involved in one of these criminal actions, and I've been there, so I'll tell you what it's like. You go to court, there are people outside court who support you, your friends turn out, your family turns out, but when you go home and you get into your house and there's no more press, there's no more court, there's no more people at the pub, and you take your suit off, you hang it up, and you sit down, that's when it all comes in. You sat there alone and you're thinking to yourself, this was a big rush. Because look, when you're in court, it is a rush. It feels like something else. And I used to remember coming out of those court hearings because they went on for so long, and sometimes it's a dark night. You come out of court, you've been in the pub, everyone's bought you a drink and patted you on the back. Good lad, mate. You fought it all the way. I'm so proud of you. And it feels good. Look, that tickles your ego. You want to, when people are telling you you've done well and they're proud of you, you feel pumped up. But when you get back into your place and you've taken your suit, shirt and tie off, you've had that shower and you sat in your bed and it's dark and the covers go over your head, you feel about this big, and the gravity of the situation you're in really hits home then. And you realize that despite people being around you and supporting you, if push comes to shove and in 6 months' time you're locked up in a cell, those people aren't going to be with you. You're on your own. And honestly, it is difficult. And I think that being there myself and going through it, I understand how dark it is for people. And, I can't stress this enough. But what Sam, what Sven Longshanks, what James Costello, what others have been through, I take my hat off to them. I was lucky enough. I won my court case. They tried me twice for the same crime. And I got not guilty on all charges. It was all defeated and knocked out. And fundamentally, I look back on it with pride, but it took a toll on me and my family. And there is this kind of sense of like punching the air and being like, yeah, we're winners, we're fighters, we're stoic, we come out of this no matter what, lads, you know. But my advice to anyone is this, and this is, again, you know, I'm not cucking, but I often ask myself, if I wouldn't say this to my mum's passed away now, but I always used to say this, if I wouldn't say this to my mum, should I be saying it on a stream or at an event or somewhere else? You know, in Sam's case, it's very different because his stickers were deemed legal and truthful. You know, they didn't argue the truthful nature of them. But it is tough. And I just ask people, it can seem funny saying things online. You might think you're going to get away with it. But please, guys, don't get yourself in a position where the state can come after you. Keep in the fight, but don't do stupid things. I was at a demo on Saturday, mate, and it was a really difficult moment because it was a great demo, but two lefties, just two, one old guy and one guy that could have been a girl, could have been a tranny, bit of a weirdo wearing a COVID mask, turned up, okay? And our lot surrounded them, right? And the police were looking nervous. And I walked over and I gave a little speech and I said, look, guys, please back off. Please leave these two weirdos alone. It doesn't make you look big or tough to, you know, menace two lone weirdos. All you're going to do is give us a bad name and maybe get yourself in trouble. And when I speak to young people who say, look, Mark, I really want to follow in your footsteps, I said, no, you don't. You don't. You don't want to do what I did because it's hard and it takes a toll on you emotionally, physically, and mentally. And unless you can go through it like I did, don't do it because it's not worth it. You don't come out on the other side with like a pot of gold and, you know, 20 Playboy bunnies and a yacht moored off the coast of Monaco. You come away unemployable, you know, not being able to travel anywhere and not with a bank account. And, you know, fight for what you believe in, be there, but be careful of the limits, be careful of the law, and be mindful that going on some, you know, kamikaze sort of samurai run right into the troops is not the best thing for anybody. Please just be careful because the state are getting more and more repressive and they have more tools than they ever did before. And look, I want to say this as well, and this isn't me cucking either, but when I was in court, the laws were different. Since I was in court, they have eroded several of the protections that we had. So they can now bring up prejudicial evidence in court. They can bring up your private text messages that had nothing to do with the crime you committed because they make you look like a bad person so everyone judges you. So just be super careful, guys. Don't drop out, come to events, do things, but just ask yourself, if my mum saw me doing this now, what would she say? And if the answer is she'd be just like, well, maybe drop that one word, or maybe don't go and punch that guy in the head. Have that in the back of your head, and you'll do a lot better for yourself.
Okay, Brad, I don't know who Scott Mills is, so that goes over my head.
Scott Mills is a Radio 2 DJ who has been sacked from Radio 2 today because of a historical male alleged sexual association, I believe. So people are now speculating that he might have been involved with Hugh Edwards. People are saying, was he involved with Jimmy Savile? These are all allegations at this point. Nothing's been proven, but Scott Mills has been cut, and it's like, boom. Wow. And it's not because he had sex with a man consensually. Obviously, this link, or people are saying that this link looks as if it points to an association with somebody who was doing something to underage males, or maybe even worse, and I'm not going to allege anything because I don't want Scott Mills to sue me. Nothing's come out that he's been involved in any particular criminal activity.
Sure.
But it's the press statement the BBC have put forward is very kind of like, well, so vague that in its vagueness, it screams that there is some kind of major incident that they don't want people to know about. You know, when you read these things where it's like, man rapes woman in Luton. You're like, well, man, Luton. We know what they're saying.
All right. Thank you, Brad. Someone's also been very generous on Buy Me a Coffee, bought me big donation, and then another one. I will read those, but I will read them towards the end because at the moment we're already off piste, and I'll read their questions.
Off piste by 55 minutes, mate.
Sorry. Listen, there's 243 people here. Lovely to see you. Can you like the video? If you know how to hype it, if you can hype live videos. It's not me wanting loads of views, but this is interesting.
I mean, he does want loads of views.
Yeah, obviously, as well.
It's not me wanting loads of views, but can I please have more views?
You're brutal. You always used to be a lot nicer than this. Right,
Mark, you said you wanted a high energy stream. I've tanked like half a litre of this
saying that.
This is what you wanted.
That's your. This, you know what? I've been to a lot of rehab centres and denial, and those voices in your head where you hear high energy. That's you. That gives you the excuse to
look. If you keep this up, I'm going to have another one, mate. Then you'll be in real trouble. A litre of this, and I'll be levitating. I'm telling you.
Joking aside, you're a wealth of really excellent information. I'd rather you just keep talking. That's great. We do need to get on to Restore Britain. There's a couple of things I want to ask you to start with. Are they an ethno-nationalist party? And following that, is ethno-nationalism a spectrum? If that makes sense.
The difference between ethno-nationalism and civic nationalism is ethno-nationalism is a statement that we as a people exist and that we have an inalienable right to our ancestral homeland. And within our ancestral homeland, we should be first-class citizens and we should not be reduced to a minority by any mechanism, whether that be legal or illegal migration. Now, Rupert Lowe is undeniably, at this point, running an ethno-nationalist party. And that could change because he could backtrack. But he came out and very, very openly said, having a British passport does not make you British. Now, that is an ethno-nationalist statement because there are two types of Britishness. There is a British citizen, which can be anybody, basically, who has a piece of paper. But then there is a white Briton. And a white Briton, that's a term that the government uses. I haven't dreamt that up. That's what people put on the census, white Briton. And that is shorthand for indigenous. It is someone who is English, Scottish, or Welsh. They are the three major ethnic groups that are indigenous to these islands. I know somebody in the chat's going to go, what about the Cornish? Yes, I said the three major. But the fact is, by acknowledging that a piece of paper or a stamp on a passport or a document doesn't make you British, it is just a piece of paper, that is a naked ethno-nationalist statement. Now, if he was a civic nationalist, he would say, if you come here and you get the piece of paper and you sign up to sort of our bill of values, you're one of us. He's saying the opposite. So you would say that somebody like Farage and Tommy Robinson are more or less, again, identical in their mantra. They are civic nationalists. Rupert Lowe is coming out as a ethno-nationalist, and that is very refreshing because he is almost, he effectively is at the point in terms of policy that the BNP was at. In fact, he's probably more hardline on deportation than the BNP was when I was a member between 2000 and 2010. Because pre-2000, when Nick Griffin took over the BNP had a forced deportation policy known as forced repatriation. The BNP then changed the policy when Nick Griffin took over in 1999 and moved to what they called voluntary repatriation, which was a paid scheme of making people go home. Rupert Lowe has come back and has nakedly said millions must go. So he's not as harsh as, say, the BNP or the National Front in the 70s, but he is harsher than the BNP in its most successful run, which was sort of 1999, 2000 to about 2010 when it had its problems and began its collapse. So I would say he is an ethno-nationalist. The statements he's making are naked ethno-nationalist statements. And as an ethno-nationalist party, he has attracted more members than any other ethno-nationalist party in post-war British history in a record length of time.
As yet, I haven't seen him, and I think intentionally describe Restore Britain as an ethno-nationalist party. I think he's leaving that away for political reasons.
He's not going to call it an ethno-nationalist party because you don't need to. The only people who understand the term ethno-nationalism are people embedded in our cause. So if I was talking to the public, if I'm talking to you, and you as somebody who is or has been very close to the dissident right or is part of the dissident right said, what are you? I would say an ethno-nationalist to immediately differentiate what I am. If you took me up to the marketplace in Castleford on a Saturday morning and said, introduce yourself to people, I would say, my name's Mark Collett. I'm a nationalist. I'm a proud Englishman. And I believe that England is our home and should always be our home. And we should always be a super majority within England. But I wouldn't say ethno-nationalist because they'd be like, well, what's an ethno-nationalist? Are the different types? I'm just a nationalist. He will never call himself a nationalist, but he doesn't need to call himself an ethno-nationalist. He's stating what he is with tweets like the one I referenced earlier.
Sure. This is my point about Carl Benjamin, because I'm sure I've seen him renounce ethno-nationalism countless times. Yet he's all behind Restore Britain. It's like, I saw a video the other day. They're in full support of it. They're in full support of Rupert Lowe.
But he is an ethno-nationalist now. Carl Benjamin has gone. You see, Carl Benjamin owes me a big apology because he has said awful things about me from time to time.
I know. And
now he's basically running with the Mark Collett playbook. No to foreign wars, no to Zionist control, no to any further immigration, yes to an ethno-state. He's basically taken all my points. And look, I'm not asking him to come and sort of like bow before me, but it wouldn't be bad for him just to send me a text and say, look, mate, you were right all along and maybe I'll have a drink with you. But he's not going to say that because he's only coming out now and saying this because Rupert Lowe has given him cover to say that. And that's not a bad thing. Look, it's not a bad thing.
Sure.
Essentially, people often wait. You see, you could say I'm an idiot because I didn't wait for somebody more powerful than me to speak the truth before I started speaking it. I started speaking the truth day one and have spoken the truth for 26 years, have had my life ruined because of it, and have been squished by a bug by every powerful part of the state apparatus. Sargon was a little bit more clever than me, and I'll give him that. He sat there saying what was acceptable to say on YouTube until somebody more powerful than him sat in Parliament, said something more radical. Then he was like, no, I'm going to say that. And, that is a very, very frugal and, how can I say it, clever way of doing things. Whereas with me, I spoke truth to power when it wasn't profitable, when it wasn't popular. I've been doing it for my entire life. And Sargon now is profiting massively off my talking points. And to some degree, I do feel a little bit sort of, I'm not going to lie, I feel a little bit aggrieved by it all. Because I think to myself, well, some of these people who are now making bank off my talking points, but refusing to acknowledge I even exist, I think it's a little bit rude. I think it's wrong. And, fundamentally, there's nothing I can do about it. And at the end of the day, I'm not super mad about it, because if Sargon takes his message to his massive audience and wakes them up to what I believe, the big thing is that the message gets out there and that people wake up. That's the fundamental. But it is slightly disingenuous of these people to claim that, you know, they're on the cutting edge of this when they've been ignoring many of these problems for almost a decade, because Sargon has been ignoring this while it wasn't profitable, but now it is profitable to talk about it, and there's the umbrella of Rupert Lowe above him. You know, he will talk about it. But, you know, there you go. That's how life works. Sometimes first mover advantage doesn't work out for you.
Well, yeah, but it might work out for the country, because someone needed to shift that Overton window, and people such as yourself have had a big part to play in that. A couple of quick super chats. Thank you, Tenor. Is that ethno-nationalism is the only way to go? No chance is right. I imagine you're talking about the Scottish YouTuber. No chance is right. This Christian nationalism is never going to work. That's what Andrew Wilson is, isn't he? A Christian nationalism. Thank you, Tenor, if that's how you say it. Brad James, civic nationalism is the UK as a Michaela school. That goes over my head, Brad, but Mark might be able to fill me in. And Brad again, I went to Newham today. No to civic nationalism. I don't know what you had a couple of beers, Brad. But thank you very much. Thank you, Tenor Car. Thank you, Brad. And thank you to the VTuber right. I will put your questions to Mark at the end, but we're running out of time rapidly. Mark. So I nearly called this video "Can Restore Britain Win?" But obviously they can. So will is a slightly different question. What are your thoughts? Because I saw Rupert Lowe the other day. There was a post and it got ratioed, and he answered, and he said that the answer's simple: we win the election in 3 years. Some words to that effect. So Rupert Lowe seems to think, or he's certainly playing that hand, that they're going to win the election. Now, I talk to people about that, and they're like, as if that's going to happen. And yeah, but they also said that about Trump. What are your honest thoughts about Rupert Lowe, Restore Britain, and what you think's going to happen?
Well, firstly, and I've seen somebody in the chat, and I'm not picking on the guy in the chat who said Restore are already at 8%. I don't think they are. I don't think they are already at 8%. They're probably 8% in Twitter polls or something like that. But to win a general election, you need to be a household name. You need to be known by everybody, and you need to be held in high regard. Now, it's taken Nigel Farage about a quarter of a century to get where he is as a respected household name, writing for the Daily Mail, part owning GB News and appearing, on regular shows there and having his own show on GB News. Nigel Farage has done the unthinkable. He has won 3 national elections for 3 different outsider parties, and he's brought about Brexit. He brought about Brexit. He won the European election with UKIP. He won a European election with the Brexit Party, and his party was the biggest party under the Reform banner at the last council elections. He's also the only man to run an anti-immigration party that got people elected clean to Parliament. And by elected clean, I don't mean a Conservative who decided to join when they were already an MP and got re-elected. I mean somebody who'd never been in Parliament, elected fresh under their banner. Now, these things are massive, massive milestones. The guy's a household name. Now, the first thing with Rupert Lowe is famous, but he's a magnitude of famous less than Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is much more famous, much, much better known. And the other problem that we have, right? The other problem that we have is that Nigel Farage is a fluffier character to vote for. And this is going to be a hard pill to swallow that people aren't going to want to hear. But please hear me out, because I've got real facts on this. The British public, unfortunately, as time has gone by, have become more and more integrated with ethnic minorities. We make up about 70% of the population. That's a fact. And as we have become more and more integrated with the 30% of ethnic minorities, because of the way the British people think, and we are very empathetic, we are people who care about what others think, most people now have either an ethnic minority in their extended family, or they are friends with somebody from an ethnic minority background. And the average British person is more concerned with not offending their ethnic minority friend than they are about their own ethnic group surviving. That's just a fact. So if you say to the average British guy, do you think immigration's gone too far? Yes. Do you think many of these people should be deported? Yes. If your friend, Jim, the black guy you work with, that you go down the pub with and watch the footy with, found out you were saying this and said he wouldn't be friends with you anymore, what would you do? I'd be gutted. I'd never say this to Jim. If Jim found out that I was voting for a racist party, that's why I couldn't do it. And this is how too many people think. Too many people are so concerned with the feelings of others, with the feeling of that one good member of an ethnic minority group that they know, that they can't bring themselves to vote for a party that talks about race or ethnicity. And this is a problem. It was a problem when I was in the BNP. And the problem manifests at its worst when there is a party like the National Front in 1979, which had become the fourth largest political party in Britain, was having marches with 10,000 plus people on them. And people were saying, yep, we're going to join. Yep, we're going to vote. Yep, we want these people gone. And then Margaret Thatcher, and you can look at this, there are entire political essays written by men that are much more intelligent than me and that have researched this far greater than I have, that will tell you that Thatcher nakedly took the National Front's policies. She started talking tough on immigration. She made a speech where she said, I understand people's legitimate fears about the swamping mass of migrants coming to this country. She used terms like swamping, and people rushed out. Thatcher won this historic election in 79. She went on to sort of reshape the entire structure of the country throughout the 1980s. But that was largely done because the National Front were gaining major headway. They were predicted, if not to win seats, to get very, very credible votes, to retain lots of deposits. And overnight, the National Front wave that people thought was going to sweep the country collapsed. The National Front lost all of its deposits. They got derisory votes. And post-1979, the National Front effectively collapsed into infighting and squabbling because of the party's poor results. This has happened time and time again. It happened for the BNP. You saw this electoral cycle where there was the European elections. UKIP did dead well. UKIP would then fall out with each other, MEPs would leave, and the BNP would quietly beaver away, winning council seats, getting people elected at local levels. I came second. In a Leeds City Council election with 20% of the vote. That was massive. Wow. And that was with the headline of the Yorkshire Evening Post, the paper that went out to almost every home in Leeds, running a headline, "Don't vote for this Nazi," with a big picture of me the day before the election. I still got 20%. But then when it came to the European elections, where were those 20% of people? They were gone because when UKIP were on the ballot paper next to us for a major national election, people were like, I'll vote for the soft option. I'll vote for the soft. And they did. And the BNP always suffered in that way. And my big concern is Rupert Lowe is not a household name. A lot of what he's building is part of this bubble on X. And X is a bubble. Things that get said and done on X would not be sayable or doable or presentable to people in the real world. So you will have people saying edgy things on X and they'll get 300, 400, 500, 1,000 likes. But going to a pub on a rough sink estate where everyone likes the half-caste lad and say those things, and you're coming out of there on a stretcher. That's just how it is. And unfortunately, I feel there's a lot of hype being built up here. And although I agree with Rupert Lowe, I admire him, I would love to see him as the next Prime Minister. My big concern is when you have the soft option on the ballot paper being Nigel Farage, who the media aren't going to call racist. You will have Rupert Lowe on the ballot paper. And if the media go all out with the racist, he's a racist, he's this Nazi, which they will. Yeah. My worry is our people always, and look, there is not a historical example that goes against what I'm saying. And I'm not trying to pour cold water on things. I'm just being a realist. Our people are so cucked, their empathy has been turned completely against. Look, there's nothing wrong with being empathetic people, as long as your empathy is married to in-group preference. So we're empathetic, but it's to other. Yeah, but we have a suicidal empathy because the empathy we should have for our own people has been turned to empathy that we have for. And look, there's already people undermining Rupert Lowe who've got massive X accounts that are boosted by Elon Musk. You've already had Tommy Robinson going, is Ian Wright English, mate? Is Ian Wright English? Come on, Rupert, tell us, is Ian Wright English? Well, Ian Wright may be a good footballer. He is a good footballer. He may have done great things for the England team. He may love England as a country, but he is not ethnically English. Now, that's not racist to say that. I love Nintendo. I love the guy who invented The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario, Donkey Kong. That guy, to me, I hold him in the highest of esteem, right? And if I went to Japan and I could have dinner with him and talk to him about all his creations and the love I have for them, that would be brilliant. But no matter how much I love that guy and how many wonderful creations of his I have on my shelves over there, I will never be Japanese. Never.
Sure. But wouldn't I mean, this might seem a little bit idiotic to say, but I think when I've listened to Rupert Lowe, I think Ian Wright would get to stay because of what he brings to the country. You know, hundreds of thousands of tax dollars.
That's not the argument. That's not the argument, Chris.
Right.
Tommy is saying, is Ian Wright English? And by saying that, what Tommy is doing is setting up Rupert Lowe and backing him into a corner. So if Rupert Lowe speaks the truth, Ian Wright is not English. Does that mean Ian Wright's a bad person? No. Does it mean Ian Wright doesn't love England? No. Does it mean Ian Wright has not contributed anything to English football? No. But he's not English. Like, I'll never be Japanese. You live in Cambodia. You'll never be Cambodian. No. But the fact is, it doesn't mean that you're a bad person. But what he's doing is he's trying, right, to make Rupert Lowe do one of two things. Either A, sell out and say, yeah, Ian Wright can be English, or come out with the truth and say, look, Ian Wright's a great fella, maybe, you know, I like him, I always loved him as a footballer, but he can never be ethnically English because English is something reserved for us, like Japanese is reserved for ethnically Japanese people. But the fact of the matter is, that's the fight Rupert's going to have. And as Rupert gains momentum, more people are going to neg him about that. And he's going to either tell the truth, at which point, great, but then he's going to be presented as the hard option next to the soft option, or B, he's going to cuck. And then you're going to have two Farages on the ballot paper.
Is there not enough going on in the eye test for people to say, yes, this is uncomfortable, yes, these are uncomfortable questions, yes, these are uncomfortable solutions, but if we don't do something radical and if we don't do something uncomfortable, it's going to get a hell of a lot worse and my children are going to suffer? Is that not a possibility? And what you were saying, a couple of people...
That's what we've been saying for 25 years, Chris.
Easy on your energy drink. Get some air in.
25 years we've been saying girls are being raped. We're being reduced to a minority. Young white lads are being stabbed by gangs.
Let me finish.
Terrorist
and
attacks.
See my point.
You know,
I get that. I'm playing devil's advocate to an extent, so we're not just having a sausage party. But as a couple of people in the chat have said, communications and information has changed exponentially since 25 years ago. You know, if Rupert Lowe was to go on the Joe Rogan show, for example, I know it's American, but loads of Brits watch it, and it's sometimes a 5-hour, 6-hour conversation, usually at least 3. Something like that could radically change. You know, if Rupert was to hold himself, I know that's Joe Rogan against. I mean, the hit piece is already coming out. I see them everywhere. You know, like local mags. I think Kent is like has got some anti-immigration policy that it sounds more like it's not really what they say it is, but it sort of looks good, I suppose. I just wonder whether the Overton window can be shifted far enough, quick enough, because my real concern is we're really running out of time. 3 years. That's a long time to bring a lot more voters in for free stuff. Add another 4 or 5 years onto that, and you know the Reds have imported their voting base that will keep them in power for the rest of the nation's history.
But the problem is, and this is going to be Rupert's problem, is once you have this sort of toxic brew around him, which he does, like your Tommy Robinsons and others, that are all going to push for this state narrative, or him to say anyone can be English if they love England. And if he doesn't say that, the press will, like Tommy Robinson is doing what he's doing to harm Rupert Lowe. But he has a massive, it's not all Rupert's way on social media. And that's the issue. And social media is very much a distorted battleground. It's a place where ideas that aren't as well seeded in the population appear bigger than they are, because people cluster together, they can bot the comments, they can go and brigade people. But if you were to go out, and this is what somebody needs to do, go and find a white middle-class estate, okay, in Britain, a place full of new build houses, electricians, tradesmen, white van drivers, people who go and sit in the office, for the day, women who go and work as teaching assistants or cut hair. Go and find a place like that. Go and knock on every door and ask them if they know who Rupert Lowe is.
Yeah.
And that's your acid test. Because I can tell you this, becoming a household name is hard, and people don't vote for people unless they know them, unless they understand them, unless they think they've got a relationship with them. And to build a party quickly in a two-party system that has been dominated by the same two parties for over 100 years is extremely tough. As I said, it's taken Nigel Farage quarter of a century to where he's got to a point where he's at the top of the opinion polls at the moment. And I'm just saying I'm not saying Rupert Lowe absolutely can't do it, and I wish Rupert Lowe did it, but I have done this for 25 years, 26 years now, and I've met many old hand nationalists who were there in the 1970s when the National Front got big. You know, the National Front had celebrity backers. At the time, in the 1970s, Britain's number one tennis star, Britain's number one ranked male tennis player, backed the National Front. You know, when he played at Wimbledon, Reds would jump up with banners, you know, saying, "Get him out, he's a racist." That was how it was. The National Front was much more mainstream than you think until the 1980s.
No, I remember being at school and all the kids talked about it. There's going to be a National Front march in Dartford this weekend because we were just down from Welling. I think one of the headquarters was in Welling.
Yeah, it was. But this is the problem. And the other problem that you've got is what is going to happen. Rupert Lowe, to win, doesn't just need to go up in the polls. He needs to get beyond Nigel Farage and reduce Nigel's share of the vote to an insignificant share. So to win a general election, you need about 30 to 35% of the vote usually. At a low end, you'd need about, I think Labour last time got in with probably a record low share of the percentage. And in fact, believe it or not, Keir Starmer got fewer votes in real terms than Jeremy Corbyn the election before. So Jeremy Corbyn got more votes in raw terms than Keir Starmer. But Keir Starmer won a bigger share of the vote because lots of Tories stayed at home. But this tells you something you need to know. The Tories lost the last election and Labour won the last election, not because people changed sides, not because people changed who they voted for, but because loads of Tories refused to go out and vote. Because all these cuck Tories were like, well, Rishi Sunak's a step too far, but I can't bring myself to vote for Nigel Farage because he might be a bit too spicy. That's how cucked a lot of these people are. And if, let's just say tomorrow, there's a general election, and let's just say we all wish as hard as we can that Rupert Lowe beats Nigel Farage, and Rupert Lowe ends up getting 16%, and Nigel Farage gets 15%, they would cancel each other out and ensure another Labour government. Because there's something that people keep forgetting. First past the post by design in this country was created in order to produce a two-party oligarchy that can't be voted out, and to make a system that is almost impossible to break into and fails to provide representation for parties that can sometimes end up with multiple millions of votes. So famously, UKIP and Farage were getting, 4, 5, 6 million votes, and they weren't getting a single seat because the system is designed to ensure that you have two parties that act as monoliths and no one else can get in. It's designed to deny people a voice. I was saying this the other day, and this is a pretty profound thing. So I want you to think about this, and I want the chat to think about this. If you went to the public and said, there's a hard-working father of two who's married and believes that white lives matter, and he put up stickers saying white lives matter, and there's another guy who's a left-wing Labour councillor, Jewish homosexual, who writes for Hope Not Hate, and he was caught grooming a 13-year-old child. Which of those people do you think should go to jail? I would say 98% of British people would say the ex-Labour councillor, Jewish paedophile who writes for Hope Not Hate should be in jail. The dad who puts the sticker up, why is he even being arrested? But the 2% who would say, no, the pedo needs to walk free and the dad with the stickers needs to go to jail, those 2% are the ones that control almost all the power in Britain. And that's your problem. That's what your democracy has delivered you. That's what your two-party system has gifted you. It's gifted you a system where 98% of the people are ignored on big issues, and the 2% who are completely out of step with the 98% are completely represented and have the whip hand over everyone else. How has that happened? Democracy! And that is why you're in a situation where an honourable man like Rupert Lowe speaking the truth on a platform like Twitter isn't necessarily going to bring you the results that you're hoping for, because the system we're in, to liken it to another system, is like a casino. And when you go into the casino, it's rigged. The house always wins because the games aren't fair. The games aren't designed to give everyone a fair platform and an equal chance of coming out with the money. The games are designed so the house takes it all. And the reason that's a good analogy is because the people who have designed the system, shaped the system, overseen the system, redrawn the boundaries, decided how money is spent, decided how the elections work, they are the parties that have been in power for the last more than a century. So you are literally going up against the house. That is your problem. And look, this doesn't mean, and I want to underline this, I keep saying this because I don't want anyone misquoting me, I'm not bad-mouthing Rupert Lowe. I'm not saying it's absolutely impossible, but what I am saying is everything is stacked against him, and I just don't want people 1979ing it, where you're all like, yeah, it's going to happen, it's in the bag, and then you're going to wake up in 2029 on the morning of May the 2nd to see Rupert Lowe on 4%, which was the 4% Farage needed to become Prime Minister, and now he's not. And whoever's replaced Keir Starmer is now taking Labour into a second term. And the first announcements are that the ethno-nationalist language that Rupert Lowe used at the last election is about to be outlawed. That is the worry for me. And as I said, we have to be truthful. You know, we have to be realists here. And the problem is, and we saw this, and this is the last thing I'll say before I throw it back to you, but this is super important, so do not underestimate what I'm about to say. In the Gorton and Denton by-election that just took place, the English in that constituency are now a minority, but they are the largest minority. They make up about 45 to 49% of the voters in that particular constituency. Yet every party chased the 20 to 25% of voters that were Pakistani Muslim. Why? I'll tell you why. Because that 20 to 25% voted for the same party. So everybody knew they were going to swing it for whichever party they voted for. No one gave a... I was going to swear then, sorry. No one gave a toss about the white English, the English people. In that constitution, I'd say white British.
Because they wouldn't vote
they were split. Some voted Tory, some voted Green, some voted Lib Dem, some voted Reform. And despite being the biggest group that if they stuck together would have won the election, they didn't. Our biggest problem is we're disunified. And I've said this a million times over, that community comes first. Before we're going to win a massive, ethnically conscious election victory, we need to think of ourselves as a group and advocate as a group. That's why these ethnic minorities tip the balance in every election, because when the Green Party said, we're here for the Pakistani Muslims, they knew that despite them not being the biggest minority, that would be enough to win because they'd act as a bloc. The whites were all over the place. If all the whites had voted for Reform would have won it. Numerically, we have the whip hand, but we act as atomized individuals. We don't act as a group. Every other group does. And that's another big issue. That's why Labour, despite betraying white people and oppressing white people and jailing white people and importing immigrants to replace white people, those immigrants have become the backbone of their electoral victories.
Yeah, I was talking to you the other day about it, and someone on my stream said, when I mentioned the "we were never asked" thing, someone said, he's a good lad actually. I don't think he was being spiky about it, but he said, well, actually we were, because they put all this stuff on this website. If you know where to find it. And you were like, no, every political party in the last 30 years has pretty much run on an anti, or certainly less immigration platform, and then as soon as they got in power, done the complete opposite.
Yeah, look, think of it like this. Well, actually, I'm not going to ask you to think of it. I'm going to tell everyone some facts. David Cameron nakedly 2010 stated, we need to get immigration down from the hundreds of thousands, and net migration needs to return to the tens of thousands, a level we can all accept. Immigration rose under David Cameron. Theresa May took over from David Cameron. We need to get immigration into the tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands per year is unacceptable. Tens of thousands is something we can all agree is a reasonable number. She increased immigration. Boris Johnson comes in. Hey, look, guys, if you vote for me, we're going to have a tough, points-based Australian-style immigration system where we take the power back, we control our borders, and we will say, if you're not coming here to contribute, we don't want you. Net migration rises to the highest level in British history.
Like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it goes. So under these three people who all say they're going to reduce immigration or bring in tough anti-immigration measures, immigration repeatedly increases under all of them. And eventually, the public gets sick of it. But not sick of it enough to vote reform, just sick of it enough to sit at home and let Labour get in. And then they locked people up for social media posts. This is what I mean, though. You know, it's like what's going to happen in America. The Democrats are likely going to smash it at the midterms, and all the anti-whiteism will come back. But they're not going to smash it because all the Republicans started voting Democrat. But the Republicans will just sit at home now because they hate Trump and they hate the Democrats. So they'll sit at home with their arms folded. This is the problem. Actually motivating people to come out and to vote for a new organization that is run by a man who is relatively unknown outside of his own constituency. And look, if you're doubting me of like, you know, why wouldn't people know who Rupert Lowe is? I know who Rupert Lowe is. Why wouldn't people know who Rupert? Well, go and ask the average person if they know the name of their MP. They don't, let alone an MP from Great Yarmouth, where they wouldn't be able to point out where Great Yarmouth was on a map of Britain, let alone name the MP down there. It's difficult. But look, this is what has been done to us by design. The people who've done this to us are malicious, intelligent, and they have designed a system purposely to create these conditions where we appear to have freedom to vote against the things we don't like, but that freedom and that democracy and that choice is purely illusory, because every time a genuine opposition has begun to be formed, whether that be the National Front, whether that be the BNP, or whether that be Restore, the system always has a fail-safe to prevent that from really getting off the ground. Now, don't get me wrong. Rupert Lowe's achieved a lot, and to have like 120,000 members, but they're members from all over the world, remember. So I know loads of Americans that have joined up and things. And so that is an issue. You know, people like Jared Taylor joined up and he got other people to join up. But let's say he's got 90,000 to 100,000 British members. You know, the Green Party have got 170,000 members. There are large, Advance UK had 40,000 members and they got beaten by the monster raving loonies.
Yeah, I see.
In the Gordon and Denton by-election.
With the pig mask on.
Yeah.
Pig nose.
Yeah. What was his name? Sir Oinkalot.
That's...
Sir Oinkalot beat Advance UK, and Advance UK have got more than 40,000 members. Remember when Britain First stood for the London mayoral election on an ethno-nationalist ticket and got beaten by Count Binface? I mean, imagine standing on the podium and a guy dressed as a dustbin waddles up to be introduced ahead of you because you've been beaten by him.
Yeah, shocking, absolutely shocking. Mark, when you say the powers that be are anti-white, malicious, are they anti-white as in literally anti-white, or is it that they're just pro-immigrants because they're importing a voting bloc?
They're anti-white in a malicious way because
So it's an ideological thing rather than a
they enact
political thing.
laws that absolutely discriminate against white people and attempt to reduce the agency we have within our society. So I'll give you a perfect example. I forget her name, but there was the woman the other day who was on TV, Jewish lady, and she was talking about white privilege. She was really happy to use the term white privilege. But when somebody used the term Jewish privilege, she flew into, a rage. How could you use this? How could you use a comment like this? And that's a microcosm of everything that's wrong with our society. So by design, every ethnic group other than the indigenous ones have a series of protections that are not afforded to us. So if somebody walked down the street today and went, "Oi, Mark, you dirty cracker," firstly, I wouldn't report them to the police anyway, because I'm not somebody who goes like reeing over hate crimes. But the fact is, if a police officer saw that, I don't think there'd be an arrest. But if I walked down the street and called somebody the P word or the N word, I'd be looking at multiple years in jail. And this goes through everything. Now, I know there's a little bit of an argument going on in the chat at the moment about Christianity. I'm not here to shill for Christianity, don't worry. I'm not going to give you a sermon. What I am going to say is, I was brought up in a country where there was at least one church in every village, where we went into school and we said the Lord's Prayer in the morning, where we ate our dinner, we said grace. Before anyone was allowed to eat a bite of their dinner, they said grace. And I have watched Christianity be ridiculed, humiliated, dragged through the mud, attacked by the government, by the media, by comedians, by campaigners, by these like edgy internet atheists. But the same people who did that to Christianity are now putting together laws that will prevent people in this country doing the same
for any other religion
or other religions. So what we're going to have here is a situation where what was until recently the nominal denomination of the indigenous people, whether you like that or not, it was. There are no protections for that denomination. And every government will tell you, we don't want those blasphemy laws back. That's backwards. Well, why are you penning blasphemy laws to protect Islam then? Because this is a perfect example of how the system will attack anything that is seen as a cultural bulwark for the indigenous people, but will hold up protections for those same things for ethnic minorities. I'll give you another example. Whenever there is a young white lad attacked or a white girl raped, a perfect example. How many people in the chat heard about the man of Indian descent ploughing in to the crowds in a packed shopping area in Derby at the weekend? At first, they didn't even give his ethnicity.
Now, was it man?
It was man. Man drives car into crowd. I think several people are actually dead. Now, this hasn't been talked about. It wasn't an accident. He's now being investigated by the counter police, but there's not outrage. Can you imagine? Well, perfect example. There was more outrage over 4 ambulances being burnt in Golders Green. There was more politicians lining up to make statements of outrage over 4 ambulances, which are inanimate objects, being torched in Golders Green than there were politicians lining up to say anything about a man from a migrant background ploughing in to shoppers, killing them in Derby at the weekend. What is that? Well, I'll tell you what that is. That is anti-whiteism by design. Because if you think 4 Jewish ambulances are more important than the lives of white Brits out shopping on a Saturday, you are a piece of shit. That means Wes Streeting, that means Keir Starmer, that means Kemi Badenoch, that means everybody sat in the House of Treason who came out to cry crocodile tears and lay flowers around 4 burnt out ambulances, but ignored the fact that yet again there are dead white people on our streets because of an immigrant who got into a car and ploughed into them. But you see, no one cares about those white people because the system is fundamentally, systemically anti-white. And rather than talk about this, they'd rather that be down the news feed. But the Jewish ambulances, well, why don't we pass new laws to protect Jews? Why don't we pass new laws to prevent anti-Semitism? But at the same time, we'll let in some more immigrants from India who, one of whom has just run over a load of white people. I think about 30 people were injured in that attack. Why aren't we all marching through Derby? Because I'll tell you what, when those ambulances were burnt, look at the response. Look at the community leaders that came out. Look at the politicians that were there, ready to bow at their knees. How can we help you? No one's helping us when we get run over, are they?
I see a video the other week. I think it was Birmingham City Council. I think it was, and they were really proud and showing off their HVDs. Their HVDs. I think it was that, something like that, some kind of acronym. And they're like these Daleks that move. They're posts in the street that can move, right? And they were like kids at a Doctor Who convention. The way they were sort of standing around with their remote controls, and I don't know if I've got the acronym right, but it stood for something like hostile vehicle deterrence. And he said, so now, you can enjoy your Christmas in Birmingham City Centre because we've installed these hostile vehicle deterrents. How does a nation get to this state? There's not a hostile vehicle in the world. Well, maybe a couple of Elon Musk's computer-driven ones might get hacked, but I don't know. Mark, do you know what a VTuber is, or VTubing?
A VTuber is somebody who is a YouTuber but uses a virtual face like an avatar. So
like an AI.
So usually it's a guy or a woman pretending to be a sort of a cute, like little anime picture, usually a girl. So a lot of them are sort of little girls who will play computer games and talk in sort of like a childish manner, and they're sort of entertaining, or people find them entertaining. I don't find them entertaining. I don't watch VTubers. I'm only aware of one VTuber because there was a funny clip of them doing something in a computer game and everyone sort of laughed. But I don't watch these things, but people, they have massive audiences. So there's a lot of people that tune in to watch adults pretending to be little girls playing computer games.
All right, well, there's a geezer here. This is quite a long message, but he was generous. He says, what are your guys, but I'll just ask you because I didn't even know what it was, about VTubers, VTubing. I think they're based. The VTuber talents are definitely, and the community tend to be made up of nationalist right-wingers, and no one seems to know why this is. For example, they're literally posting memes and images on X of their avatars in uniforms from the National Socialist Workers' Party in Germany, unaliving Turks, forcibly removing Indians, etc. Granted, these memes are jokes that are deliberately over the top, but you can't argue that they wouldn't be beyond the pale for the mainstream liberal cosmopolitan culture that exists in other forms of entertainment controlled by the powers that be. Several VTubers I've come across with large audience, mind you, are watching and reacting favourably to nationalist right-wing content on their streams too. One was watching Zoomer historian videos. One was reacting to your speech on for PA. One was watching American Renaissance, that's Amarin, isn't it? Yes, videos. And there have been others talking about migrants from the third world coming into Western civilization. These VTubers are reacting with rage at what we're witnessing. The third world immigration and the displacement of white people. In my opinion, this is based and will wake a lot of people up. They're massive views. You love to see
they are.
it.
So one of the most famous
Last bit, because he threw a load of money at me, and I think that's fair enough. The people who are saying that VTubers are cringe, who also seem to show up in the chat, these are the same people who watch Democrat ball and drool over Zogslop adverts and products. Thanks for reading my long message, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. So I didn't know anything about VTubers, so thanks, mate, for informing me about that. Mark does. Let me know, Mark.
Well, one of the most famous VTubers is called Amelia Watson. And Amelia Watson is essentially a cartoon little girl who plays computer games, speaks in English as like a little girl. And people love this. She's got 1.8 million subscribers on YouTube. So, I mean, when I say this is big, I don't mean big like, I had 100,000 subs on YouTube. I'm nowhere near as big as the likes of Amelia Watson. And they are sort of popular because I don't know how to say this without coming over. Like, I don't watch this sort of stuff, but I understand to a degree why people do. There's this cheery sort of little girl playing games that online that people like. And she's always cheery and chirpy. And you look at the outside world, and the outside world is becoming more and more of a horrible place. And people tune into these things because they're lighthearted, they're fun, they raise people's spirits, and they take people's minds off the inflation, the migrants, the problems they're having at work. And people like it. I'm aware of them because there's a viral clip called Amelia Watson versus DSP. And I'm not going into the whole DSP thing, but you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
Is that Amelia Watson? Is that the rebrand of the Amelia that the state tried to push?
No. Amelia Watson is massive, a massive YouTuber. So if you go on YouTube, which I'm doing now, and you sort of like you type in Amelia Watson, it's a sort of a gateway to all of these people. She's the only one that I'm aware of by name because there's a viral clip that made me laugh called Amelia Watson versus DSP. But she's massive. And as I said, she's got 1.8 million subs. And if you go on her channel, you'll see other massive VTubers that have got 1.13 million subs, 1.17 million subs, 1.14 million subs. And you can go through these people and one here, 1.3 million subs, and they're all the same styled. But if people like it, and if people enjoy it, and if people are, and if they're talking our talking points, great. I mean, if one of them's watching my PA speech and saying this guy's based, well, fair enough. If there's people watching those, then and they like me, I've got no beef with them. I just don't watch them. And the reason I don't watch them is because it's not the kind of content that appeals to me. Sure. I have seen stuff clipped out, which is amusing, where they're playing games, but I'm not going to be spiteful or mean to them. We all have our personal interests. And like I said, I think the reason people like them is because they transport people into a sort of more childlike, friendly world where their problems sort of dissolve away and they feel kind of like, well, this is a cozy little spot where I can go and, react to things. And I feel better about the world when I'm watching it, and we all have those sort of things. Like I play computer games with my mates. I play my old retro games and I do things sometimes to disconnect, and people have a way of disconnecting because if you're plugged into all of the horrible things that's happening all of the time, you stare into the darkness long enough and it stares back into you and it warps you in certain ways. And I've seen many nationalists who've become broken men.
People, you don't get that every day of the week. Thank you, Dottie, for your you quoted Nietzsche, that's what I said.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Dottie, for your donation. Brad said this will be the last decade of peace, otherwise I assume you're saying if Labour get in. I don't see it going well.
Do you want me to really scare you here, Dangerfield?
Not really, but that's what I brought you on for, because you do that. You've already been doing that for nearly 2 hours, mate.
1999/2000, white Britons made up 90% roughly of the population. 2024, 2025, we were down to 70% of the population. A quarter of a century, there was a 25% shift. That averages 0.8% a year. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to work out that if we keep declining at that flat rate of 0.8%, we will be at 50% by 2050. And bear in mind, that was an acceleration rate. I put it as a flat rate, but it was actually like that.
And now, it won't continue at a flat rate, will it?
We have around 25 years until we hit minority status. But you know what's even worse than what I've just said? It becomes less likely that we turn it around the further it goes. So it's not some problems are static. Yeah. So, you have a problem. Like if you're painting a wall and you're doing it in the wrong color and I shout stop, immediately you stop and the problem doesn't get any worse. But there are some problems that you can't immediately stop, like a train hurtling towards, a car parked on a level crossing, that you can't immediately say stop. It takes time to slow it down. It takes time to put the brakes on. It takes time. And if you were thinking about reversing that train, you have to slow it down. You have to stop it. You have to put it into reverse. You have to then start moving again. It takes time. And the problem that we have is the more we speed up and the closer we get to disaster, the harder it is to stop it, let alone turn it around. And we are now hitting that point where, okay, we're 70%-ish of the population. But in 5 years, statistically, we'll be 66% of the population. In 10 years, statistically, at that flat line, we'll be 62% of the population. So if we don't win the next general election and start deporting people, can we win in 2034? Would it be possible to take the country back in 2039? Do you see what I mean?
You saying, would we physically have the numbers to make it even possible?
That's what I'm saying. Because, as I said, people say the more that come in, the angrier people that get. But historically, that hasn't been the case. The more that come in, yes, certain people get more angry, but others become more invested in the system. I was in so we go to this farm shop near us, and it's got this like farm shop restaurant where everyone loves it. You can tell by my tone, I don't love it. Right, but everyone else loves it. Everyone's like, yeah, it's the best thing in the world, isn't it, Mark? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I wanted to go to Five Guys, but everyone wants the farm shop. So we go to the farm shop, and we were in there the other day. I wasn't paying for the meal, so I wasn't complaining. But my burger was dry. There was no burger sauce on it. I don't like a dry burger. But, we're in there, and there's this very sort of well-to-do, like Middle England family. There's grandma, granddad, mum, and the children. Grandma and granddad are white, mum's white, the children aren't. The problem you've got is if you say, we need remigration, we've got to start kicking them out. You might say, well, the mum ain't going to vote for that. And the non-white kids, when they come of age, they're not going to vote for that. And that's why Labour are dropping the voting age to 16, because that's the most diverse demographic. I talked earlier about how the system's designed to screw us over. Well, I give you this, Dangerfield. They are dropping the age of consent when it comes to voting because they know that by getting 16, 17-year-olds actually out voting, that's going to help them because they've done all the maths. They've calculated that they would be more likely to vote for a diverse party.
Well, they've also educated them. They've also spent the last 16 years telling them what to think.
What I was going to say, But what I was going to
Go
say,
on.
let me finish my point. The point is,
Sure.
it's not just the mum and the kids there that aren't going to vote for us. I bet the grandparents would be like, I can't vote for you. I remember people who joined the BNP. There was a guy from Leeds who joined the BNP. He was actually a bit of a dickhead, and he actually wet himself on my sofa, believe it or not. So yeah, he stayed at my house on a New Year's Eve and wet himself. That was unpleasant. But anyway, total dickhead. But his sister married a black guy, and he dropped out of the BNP. You know why he dropped out of the BNP? Because he couldn't vote for a party that would potentially kick his nephews and nieces out. That's how people are.
And yeah, people get very local, very short term, and there you go. And also, as time moves on, the younger people are growing up. They're growing up they're not seeing the change that the likes of you and me have seen. They're in a system that's already very multicultural, and it's like, this is a problem. And for like kids who are about 10, 11, 12 now, this isn't a problem. This is life. This is how it's always been. That's how they'll see it.
Well, not only that, but they'll be scared because I see now gangs of white lads in big cities like Leeds, and all of these groups of white lads will have at least one mixed race guy or one black guy as part of the group. And they'll be like, I've grown up with him. He's a mate of mine. We play COD together every night. We sit together in school. He's on the local footy team. And it is, on a local level, the Ian Wright issue. Tommy's done that on a national level. Well, what about Ian Wright? What about Ian Wright? Well, what about Ian Wright? But Ian Wright on a national level is essentially the black guy that you went to school with. He's the mixed race guy you play Call of Duty with. He's the Indian guy that helped you out in maths class. And the problem is, all everyone needs to do is find one person of migrant descent that they have an affinity for. And because of our suicidal empathy, it prevents them from making a decision that they feel may make their non-white friend uncomfortable. These are the issues. And as things go on, it becomes more difficult for us. We become more of a minority, more people become integrated. But my solution is Britain still has places that are 95% white British. If we want to affect change, we have to stop thinking about saving areas like London and Birmingham that are completely lost and start talking about moving to areas that are overwhelmingly white, where we can go, where we can bring our families up, and where we can pull the drawbridge up and say, this is our community. That's what Muslims have done in Dewsbury. That's what Indians have done in parts of Leicester. It's what Bangladeshis have done in places like Tower Hamlets. It's what blacks have done in certain parts of London, like Brixton. We need intentional white communities. And then we can vote in our own MP to advocate for us locally. We can win the local council. But all of these electoral victories, like I said earlier, are downstream from community. Having Rupert Lowe, 2 million followers or whatever on X, some of them all over the world, maybe 1.5 million of them in Britain, but 1.5 million people spread out all over the UK willing to vote for you. Well, that you kind of end up there with what the BNP had, sort of 4.2% of the vote, no one elected, forgotten, waste of time.
I mean, that's been your message since I've known you, really, building communities. I mean, it's crazy. There's a big court case going on in America. You might know the name of it. There's a white community. They bought a big bit of land. Yeah. Loads of black communities have set up and had absolutely
Jewish communities,
no
black
problems.
Communities. Yeah. As soon as there's a white community, shut it down. That's what I say about the system being intentionally anti-white.
Crazy. Give us some good news to leave, Mark. Something positive.
Look, I'll give you the good news. I've actually really, really enjoyed being here with you tonight. It's really good streaming with you again. And to be honest, I think we've had a really entertaining chat. And I've actually I'll be honest, sometimes I come on the streams and I feel exhausted at the end. And I could do another hour with you, mate. It's been a really, really good time. And I've really enjoyed it. We don't do this often enough. I would definitely be willing to come on sort of once a month or whatever and do a powerful stream with you at around this time, maybe on a Monday once a month if you wanted me. Anything I can do to help you, you know I will. I've always been here for you as a friend in the background whenever you've reached out. And I have really enjoyed it. I enjoy the banter we have. I'm always gutted that when you come to England, you never call me because you think I'm a dickhead, really, you know.
Well, I'll be out there promoting my next novel. I'll be going up your neck of the woods. I used to live up near you. I lived in I lived in Chapeltown, enough said. And I quickly got out of there and moved to Headingley. It was quite weird when I was watching Teddy Dutton's video about you and Russell. And Teddy said, you wouldn't do that these days because that front of your house, that road, I lived on Hessel Avenue. Do you know Hessel? I'm sure I know the whole of Leeds looks the same, but I'm sure it's the same little estate.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Hessels, yeah. I was near there. I was near there.
Yeah. And even when I was there, I'd done my master's at Leeds University. You'd get your house robbed by foreign people. It just was. Students as well, obviously, because that whole area is pretty much students. And then they knock on your door the next day to sell you your stuff back. And, know, they're like 15, 16-year-olds, no fear, because they know if you do anything, the family's coming round a half hour later. And people would buy their stuff back because they'd rather have their computer and their things back. And when I got there, I'd been in like utopia of Totnes. It's a bit hippie, but from someone who grew up in the estuary, North Kent and South East London, to go down to Devon to do my bachelor's degree, it was just gorgeous. Went up to Leeds. I got knocked out on my first night there. I ordered a beer, and the bloke next to me, old bloke as well, he went, oh, apples and pears, north and south. And I just sort of went, yeah, I suppose so. And he went, first night, I had more violence in 2 years in Leeds than the rest of my life put together. Well, up until that point. But every single house by then, and this is about 95, in Headingley, had those bars on the doors and windows. There wasn't one.
Mate, it was like that. And this is the thing. That now is every former white working class area in Leeds. It's gone. I would say Manchester is now gone. Manchester is now a place where white Brits are a minority. Leeds, it will be coming soon. People don't understand how quickly the demographics of an area can change. They move them in. They make it so there aren't any areas for us. And we just need to come together. But look, mate, it has been a great stream. I've really loved it. I'd love to meet you in real life, maybe do something with you in real life. And, it has been good, mate. But look, I got to fly. But thank you so much for hosting me. And if you ever need me or you ever want me to do a show, I'd be happy to do it semi-regularly because I've had more fun tonight than I've had in a long time doing a stream, I'll tell you that.
Well, it's the stream I've done the least speaking on since you were last on, and I love that because I'm quite tired. I know how Packer feels now. Packer's my co-host, but he doesn't say anything, so it's been brilliant. Show Mark some love in the chat, can you, people? Mark, thanks for coming on.
Please, one thing. I'll ask everyone one thing. Please go over to Rumble and sub my Rumble channel or go to my Telegram. The only thing I ask for is if people can give me that subscription over on Rumble. It doesn't cost you anything, but it means a great deal to me. I've been deplatformed from YouTube, lost 100,000 followers. Deplatformed from X, lost 60,000. Please, 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 just give me a sub over on Rumble. I'm not even on 10,000 there yet. I'm trying to build it up. I work really hard. I do at least 3 streams on my own channel a week, whilst at the same time, I do maybe 5, 6, sometimes more shows as guest appearances as well. So please, just, if you can, give me that little bit of support. It means a huge amount to me.
Yeah, and do that, people, because Mark's been in this for his life. You know, for the long haul, and a massive sacrifice to not just his, but his family's life. We dip in and out, we have a little laugh here and there, but go and listen to Mark, and you'll find there's more depth to this than you ever imagined. Not all of you. I know a lot of you are, far more involved than I am. Is that it, Mark? I just put it in the chat. I'll put it on the screen. Is that your?
Yeah, that's the one. Like? Yeah. Spelt like my real name.
People. Easy. Rumble.com,
so thank you so
then
much.
/C// I'll leave it in there. Mark, look after yourself.
Mate.
I'll talk
thank
to you soon.
Have a lovely day, mate. I'll speak soon. Thanks to everyone in the chat. You've been great. Thank you.
1 minute. It's too much energy drinks, man. There's no space. We will do the Mad Max thing at some point.
Yeah. We've got to do that. Sorry, I am totally buzzing. I probably shouldn't have necked 500 mil of it, boom, like that. But I have, and that's what you get, mate. See you later. Thanks so much, bro. Love to you all. Cheers. Bye.
Love Mark. You know what? Back in the early days of the dissident right, when my channel was growing 1,000 a day, and I thought, oh, this is lovely. People, there's 232 of you here. Like the stream if you can. I don't run adverts on my live streams. I can run adverts on these. I don't run them on my videos. If you do want to support me, and if you do want a good read, give that a go. It was a #1 new release on Amazon. It got to number 51 in British literary fiction. It's a teenage diary. If you grew up in the 1980s or were ever a teenager, it's a fucking great read. Go on Amazon. It's 4.9 out of 5. There's about 60 reviews. Just read some of them. That's how you can support me, and I'll keep putting this content out. I'll definitely get Mark back on again. I'll try and see if I can get Sam on for a chat, but that might be a bit more difficult. Dottie donated. She said, a fascinating stream while frying up some onions, Chris. I'm sorry if I missed some super chats that were towards Mark, but he was buzzing, man. He was whizzing his tits off. Is it Tenurkar again? I think Christianity is used against us, turn the other cheek, treat your neighbour like you would. Yeah, they do selectively sort of, oh, no, this is our religion. And it's all the bits that, like you say, work against us. It's sort of like the fuel that powers the engine of suicidal empathy. Treat your neighbour like you would like to be treated yourself when your neighbour's a fucking arsehole. Exactly that. Thank you, Tenurkart. You've been very kind and generous tonight. Brad says, thoughts on... is that computer games, Brad? I don't know. I'm sorry that I'm sure... me and Mark have been talking about doing a Mad Max. There's 4 Mad Max films, and we disagree about things. It'll be a lighter stream, and I'll see if I can keep him off the drugs. What you don't know is when he's talking, that energy drink is straight in the vein under the table. That's a joke. That's a joke. Thank you, Brad, though, for donating many times today. Delta Trotska. I'm not racist. My mate Johnny's black. Yep, that's been going around forever, hasn't it? Mark is an English hero. I mean, just the dedication to the cause. And as I started saying before, back when my stream was growing, and then I started talking about nationalist ideas, and it went and hasn't really grown since then. And I'd done some work for YouTube, literally in a different capacity. And I said to this geezer, I said, "Oi, people talk about shadow banning. Is that a real thing?" And he said, yeah, for sure. If there's someone we think, they're not sort of aligned to us. So I always thought, people going, my channel's shadow banned. I used to think, no, people just don't like watching it, and you're blaming this sort of ephemeral idea of shadow banning. But no, I was told by someone that actually is a thing. Thank you, John B. Much appreciated. Wait, Chris is right. Wait, Brad, people, if you are interested in reading, I've got a Substack. It's free at the moment as well. So if you want to get over there and check some of that out, it's pretty brutal. Most of it's brutal English realism. But I think that's important. I think that's part of our culture. I think that's part of our history. It's 2:15 in the morning here. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope I haven't missed anyone. Anyone who donate or has donated on Buy Me a Coffee, you'll get a video reply. And it's not an automated one that everyone gets. You'll get me talking to you, which is nice. And it's a good platform to use at Buy Me a Coffee because they take the least and they don't, I get to be fed from it rather than someone else. You lot have been brilliant. Let's have a go. While there's still 200 people here, I think we might as well have a look at some comments. Donut the Snake. I don't know what it means, but nice to see you, John, as ever. Hello, Baz. How are you? We need more intelligent and honest men and women in Europe to speak up. I mean, I'm kind of optimistic that I think a lot of people are going to go back to their ethnic homelands anyway, simply because they're seeing a change in not the Overton window, because I doubt they'd even know what that was, but they're just seeing a change in atmosphere. Perhaps. I think that's going to happen. What else we got here? Piz, oh hello mate, pal. It's been a great stream, Chris. It's been lovely. I know how Packer feels now. Baz very much enjoyed my talk with Teddy Dutton. He might be live now. Teddy Dutton, I said to him, do you want to stream with me and talk about this? Because it is weirdly political, because it talks about life in the 80s, how different things was. There's no mention of Islam in that book. 14 years old, 1986. Just wasn't a thing. A different world. And it's only, 40 years ago, 45 years ago? It just wasn't a thing, And Edward Dutton said, yeah, all right, I'll do it. I thought, great, it'll give me a bit of exposure. And then he put it on his Substack behind a paywall. I even sent him a message on X saying, Teddy, if you want, send me the raw file and I'll put it on my YouTube channel, that chat. And he didn't do that either. People have got to make a living. I get it. Hello, Moody Edge. I just turned up, so fuck. Yeah, I know. No worries. Rise of the Rye. Hello, mate. Long time no see. Good to be back now and again. That's all right. I'll take you out whenever and however you can get here. Love you all, and Chris Dangerfield. All love. Oh, yes, lovely to see you, mate. Hoit to that. I think there's going to be some twists and turns in the story of the United Kingdom yet. I don't think the arrow of history follows a straight path. I think things can catch you out and surprise you as well. Tej is in. He's changed his name. Did you get banned? Mark is honed to perfection in this area of conversation. Yeah, that's why it's just great getting him on. We're talking about Restore Britain, fill him up with energy drinks and let the mad dog loose. Hooper says, I never saw a non-white in person till I was about 14. I remember meeting a girl on holiday when, hang on, I'll turn this round. I was 14, she was 14. And she lived in Bristol. And it was like a weird little childhood holiday. I think we were 13, actually. A weird little holiday romance. And, you're 13, and I thought I was going to love her forever. And I thought she was the most beautiful woman ever. Well, child, but again, I was also a child. And her family came up to London for the weekend. We were writing to each other. We thought we were going to, write together forever. It lasted like about 3 weeks. And her family came up to London, and she came to Dartford. And she said to me, where are all the black people? I had no answer, because it was Dartford. And Dartford then was, as white as my anemic skin. John, hello, Spanish chicken. How are you, son? Any more super chats? No, we're done there. Right, people. It is Jed. I saw you in here. I don't know if you're still here. Hello, Sheila. Oh, sorry, Dottie. Thanks for the donation. Thank you, VTuber, right, and Dottie. You'll both get your videos. I am now. Hello, Monster Traps. Hello, Miss Glass. How are you, darling? Long time no hear. They'll give us a bit of hope as a teaser, but that's your lot. I think it's come so far now, there's no going back. I don't know. I mean, it's never going to be like it was. I don't actually want it like it was in many respects because that's ridiculous. It's not a museum. There's more. You can run into more problems there. It's like when people talk about America and the nuclear family and the white picket fence. It was already over by then. Extended out here. Great grandmothers live with their daughters, who live with their daughters, who live with their daughters, and the husbands. They're all their plots in the provinces is like they're 30 strong families, and they police themselves as well, because if anyone fucks up, they don't get invited to the nice food. They don't get invited to that Buddhist celebration. And there's Buddhist celebrations out in Cambodia all the time, and they're exclusive because culture's exclusive. It drives me insane when I see things in the British media saying, oh, we're not going to call it Christmas because it excludes people. Yeah, that's what culture's meant to do. It says we are us, you ain't. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what you'll notice, if you look a little bit closer, all the other cultures do that as well. Only they're allowed to. We get politicians sort of saying, Happy Ramadan and all that. And it's like, yeah, but you told us we couldn't say Happy Christmas. What? Like out here, I'm a second-class citizen, and the locals around here love me. I mean, they call me Barang Chagud, which means it roughly translates as foreigner with mental problems. But they've accepted me. I've been out here long enough now. But I'm not one of them. Nowhere near. What if anything happened? If there was a fire or a little tear up outside, and I was involved, they'd be on the Khmer person side every time. And because they should. When I tell people out here that there are foreign people in the English government, they think I'm joking. I show them online. I go, look, I'll show you. And they're like, why? What? But they say, but this is the government of the English. And I say, yeah. They say, yeah, but they're not English, no? I say, well, they not really, but they pretend to be. I don't know what to say. And when you get that critical distance, when you step back from it, when you see it through the eyes of people who would not tolerate that and just don't understand it, you suddenly see how absolutely bizarre it is, and how you cannot run a society like that. It will only go downhill. It will. To say it will end in tears is an underestimation. But as I said earlier, I remain optimistic, because if you let this stuff demoralise you after the work is done anyway, don't let it demoralise you, because that's what they want. They want it to demoralise you. But the powers that be, the leftist orthodox media, they've been smashing us over the head with guilt since the end of the Second World War. And every time you're like, oh, this world, this country, whatever, they love that. They love it. That's panopticism. That's where you're surveying yourself. You're doing the work of the state by just keeping yourself in check. Oh no, I should feel bad. No, absolutely not. Right. Someone earlier said this, so I'm going to get this up. Give me a second. Bosh. Pause. Right. Listen, I want to thank all the people that came. Lovely. Don't forget to like the stream. Hype it if you can hype live streams. I don't get to hype out here. I've never seen the hype button. But if you've enjoyed it and you want to spread this message far and wide, that'll be handy. Thanks to everyone who donated. This is my job now, this and writing. New Substack short coming out soon, and it's an absolute banger. And there's only about 3 months left before I monetize my Substack. Go and subscribe to my Substack. Link in the description if you like reading. But even if you don't like reading, there's a lot of people who read my Substack and they leave in the comments. They say, I'm not really a big reader, but I absolutely love your stuff. Because I don't write like an airy-fairy writer. Upon some wondrous morning did I once perchance see a ghost of a history that once did desert me in this foreign land. No, I don't write like that. I write like this. So there's a few post-structural, postmodern, avant-garde, neo-ironic jokes in there, but the rest of it's pretty shit. So that'll be nice. That'll be handy. I'm going to play a bit of music. I'm going to put every message on the screen, unless it's going to get me cancelled. I mean, having Mark on's probably going to do that. So, thanks to all of you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Exactly that, Vorp and Amber. Well, there is a time for a writer that dominated stage writing for 500 years, and there is a place for the bloke that got me into writing. When I read Post Office, I thought, I can do this. This is brilliant. What a book, Post Office. I rarely read books more than once, but Post Office, I regularly go back to. That is exactly what we're doing, Mr. Cray. Thanks for looking after the place, by the way. It's always chaos here without my moderators. Hello, Pags. Look, it's slowly. The numbers are going down to just the hello, Otto. It's going down to the OGs. It's lovely. John, have you read Women? Have you read Ham on Rye? If you haven't read Ham on Rye, is the Bukowski origin story. It's him as a kid, and it puts everything. It's like the last bit of the puzzle. Puts everything. It puts factotum. It puts women, it puts Post Office, it puts Tales of Ordinary Madness, Tales of a Dirty Old Man. It puts all that lot into, you suddenly go, I get it. It's something very special. Right, let me sort this out. Look after yourselves, people. And I will listen. Here's why I haven't been streaming so much. I'm writing full time now. I'm running out of money. I'm literally running out of money, so I'm having to get this. The novel I've been writing for 10 years that OG scrubs know about, that's getting finished. I'm actually finishing it. I do 5 hours writing a day. That's non-negotiable, and I often do more. And then, of course, I get a migraine, so that's 2 days off just in bed. But what am I going to do? I'm a writer. I'm a full-time writer. I can't stop writing. That's the only skill I've got. It's the only skill. I can't be doing marketing anymore. I can't be doing e-commerce anymore. I can do a bit of this, but, when you're going to bed 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, because when I get in that flow state writing, I don't want to stop. I want to do it forever. And it's only because my missus gets out of bed and goes, come on, you look like you're dying. Thank you. And you look beautiful. Here's a bit of music for you, people. I will be putting your messages on the screen. Feel free to help out with the grift if you wish. And keep an eye on the channel, because I do try and do as many streams as I can, but I'm cursed with the migraines. And what can you do about that? Ta-ta. Hang on. Hang on, I fucked it up. I don't even know if you can still hear me. Maybe you can. Right, here we go. Bosh. Don't forget to go and give Mark a sub. Loads of content. The geezer's dedicated his life to it. Probably about 20 other nationalists haven't done the work that Mark has.
I'm stupid, I'm lazy, but in the discotheque I still look crazy. Love me, baby, I only tell lies cause the truth escapes. Summertime, we can get new shoes. I'll have brown and you can get the blues. I'm knackered, I'm fading, but in the right light I still look vaguely human. Happy, it won't be long before we cave in. Summertime, we can get new shoes. I'll have brown and you can get the blues. You can get the blues. Don't worry about my heroin addiction, it's only slight. I need you, love me, and I feel the same again tonight. Summertime, we can get new shoes. I'll have brown and you can get the blues. You can get the blues. You can get the blues. You can get the blues.
There you go, people. Oh, what am I doing? Hello, Pizzo. I can't play Milk. Listen to my voice. It's 2:30 in the morning. I've still got to write for 3 hours because I won't eat otherwise. Like I said before, go and sign up to my Substack. If you don't like them, you can always unsubscribe. If you're already a subscriber, I've got about 1,600. You're not going to lose out when I monetize it. You're still going to get one a month, which is what roughly you've been getting. But it'll be about a cup of coffee a month to get behind the paywall, and there will be two more. So if you don't you don't want to, it's not monetized yet. I'm going to write a load of stories so that I can schedule them so that if people are paying, I can't not do one month. But you'll still get the same amount, but they're going to be a little bit more personal, a little bit more behind the scenes. It's nearly finished actually. I'll probably finish this latest short, so look out for it. When you get it in your email, go through the Substack because it's quite a long one, but it's very funny and it's. I think it'll crack a lot of you up. Thank you all. Love you all. Look after yourselves. It's dark out there, but if you can keep some light in your art, you can get through. Take care, people. I'll see you soon. Hoita.